Star Wars wasn't just a space opera that changed cinema forever. It was a film where Luke Skywalker could have been played by Freddy Krueger, where the studio thought it would flop so badly they let George Lucas keep the merchandising rights, and where one actor's casual suggestion to a friend created the most iconic hero in movie history. What started as Lucas's tribute to Flash Gordon's series became the most influential blockbuster ever made. But behind those lightsaber duels and Death Star explosions were casting near misses that would have changed everything. These are 20 weird facts about A New Hope, and buried in the Force is a story about how Hollywood's biggest gamble became its greatest triumph. Number 1. Most casting directors spend months finding the perfect lead, but sometimes destiny works in mysterious ways. Robert Englund, yes, the future Freddy Krueger, auditioned for Luke Skywalker and walked away convinced he'd bombed completely. But as he complained to his actor friend about how badly the audition went, something clicked. He looked at his pal and said, "Actually, I think you'd be a really good fit for it." That friend was Mark Hamill. Englund's failed audition became the recommendation that launched the most famous Jedi in the galaxy. Number 2, you'd think the most dangerous moment on set would involve lightsaber fights or space battles, but the real hazard was much more mundane. During the Cantina scene, one of the alien masks was so restrictive that the actor inside couldn't see properly and walked straight into a pillar, knocking himself unconscious. The crew had to carefully remove the elaborate costume to check for injuries. In a galaxy far, far away, the biggest enemy wasn't the Empire, it was basic visibility. Number 3. The film's most iconic weapon almost never made its legendary sound. Ben Burtt, the sound designer, was struggling to create the perfect lightsaber noise when he accidentally walked past an old television set while holding a microphone. The interference between the microphone and the TV's picture tube created that distinctive hum. But that was just the base. He layered it with the sound of film projector motors to create the movement effect. The weapon of the Jedi was born from a happy accident with 1970s technology, and we still love it to this day. Number 4. Studio executives weren't just skeptical about Star Wars, they were convinced it would be a disaster. 20th Century Fox was so certain the film would flop that when George Lucas asked to keep the merchandising rights instead of taking a higher directing fee, they practically laughed him out of the room. Toys from a space movie? Sure, kid, knock yourself out. That decision cost them billions and made Lucas one of the wealthiest filmmakers in history. Sometimes the best business deals happen when nobody believes in your vision. Number 5. The Death Star's destruction wasn't just special effects wizardry. It was a combination of practical ingenuity and pure luck. The explosion was created using aluminum powder, flash powder, and cotton balls, all ignited in a controlled blast. But the timing had to be perfect because they only had enough budget for one take. When the explosion went off exactly as planned, creating that perfect, expanding ring of destruction, the entire crew erupted in cheers. They'd just witnessed the birth of one of cinema's most memorable moments. Number 6. Alec Guinness brought Shakespearean element to Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he had one major problem with the role. He reportedly called the dialogue rubbish and struggled with lines like "the Force will be with you." During filming, he would often rewrite his own dialogue on the spot, making it sound more natural and less like what he called fairy tale nonsense. His professional frustration with the script actually improved it, as his revisions gave Obi-Wan a more grounded, wise quality that elevated the mystical elements. Number 7. The Cantina scene looks like it's filled with dozens of unique alien species, but the reality was much more resourceful. The production had a limited budget for alien masks, so many background aliens were created by simply putting masks on backwards, adding different accessories, or combining pieces from multiple costumes. Some aliens were just crew members wearing rubber masks from novelty shops. The diverse galaxy of the Cantina was actually a masterclass in creative recycling, quite ingenious when you have a limited budget of 11 million. Number 8. Princess Leia's iconic metal bikini gets all the attention, but her white dress in A New Hope had its own behind-the-scenes drama. When she mentioned this to George Lucas, he reportedly told her, "There's no underwear in space." Fisher later joked that this became her favorite piece of Star Wars trivia to share at conventions, always getting huge laughs from audiences who never expected such a practical wardrobe concern in a galaxy far, far away. Number 9. The film's opening crawl almost never happened, and when it did, it nearly broke the budget. The text scrolling into space was achieved by placing a camera at the bottom of a 4-foot-long model of the text, then slowly moving the camera up while tilting it back. But the first attempts looked terrible. The text was blurry, and the perspective was wrong. They had to rebuild the entire setup multiple times, eating into their already tight budget. That opening that every Star Wars fan knows by heart was one of the most challenging shots in the entire film. Number 10. R2-D2's personality came from an unlikely source, a cranky British actor inside a metal can. Kenny Baker, who operated R2-D2, was frequently uncomfortable, hot, and frustrated during filming. His genuine irritation at being stuck inside the droid actually created R2's sassy, independent personality. When R2 rocks back and forth or makes agitated beeping sounds, that's often Baker expressing his real discomfort. The galaxy's most beloved droid was powered by authentic human annoyance. Number 11. The Millennium Falcon's design has one of the most famous origin stories in cinema, but the real story is even weirder. George Lucas wanted a ship that looked like a flying hamburger, and the initial designs were indeed round and flat, but when Lucas saw the design, he said it looked too much like the ship from the TV show Space 1999. So they flipped the design sideways, added the cockpit to one side, and created the asymmetrical ship we know today. The fastest ship in the galaxy was born from avoiding a copyright lawsuit. Number 12. Darth Vader's breathing wasn't just James Earl Jones's voice work. It required a separate performer entirely. The mechanical breathing sound was created by Ben Burt using scuba gear, but during filming, David Prowse, who wore the Vader costume, had to time his chest movements to match breathing that would be added later in post-production. Prowse never heard his own dialogue, replaced by Jones, until he saw the finished film. But thankfully, when Prowse did hear it, he was a good sport about it, realizing his accent didn't suit Vader. The most iconic villain in cinema was actually 3 people: Prowse's body, Jones's voice, and Burt's breathing apparatus. Number 13. The lightsaber duels looked choreographed and elegant, but the reality was much more chaotic. The original lightsaber props were made from camera flash handles, with decorative elements added. They were fragile and broke constantly during fight scenes. Alec Guinness and David Prowse had to be extremely careful during their duel because the props would shatter if they hit too hard. The elegant weapon of a more civilized age was actually held together with hope and careful choreography. Number 14. The film's most quoted line almost sounded completely different. It was originally written as, "May the force of others be with you," but it was shortened during revisions because it sounded too clunky. That simple edit created one of the most recognizable phrases in pop culture. Sometimes the most powerful words come from cutting away everything unnecessary. Number 15. The Death Star's interior wasn't built in a studio. It was filmed in real locations that created unexpected challenges. Many of the Death Star corridor scenes were shot in underground tunnels and industrial facilities. The echo in these real spaces was so pronounced that much of the dialogue had to be re-recorded in post-production because the original audio was unusable. The Empire's ultimate weapon sounded like a subway tunnel until the sound team worked their magic. Number 16. C-3PO's golden appearance almost never happened, and when it did, it created a nightmare for Anthony Daniels. The original design called for C-3PO to be silver, but Lucas changed his mind late in pre-production. The gold plating looked stunning, but was incredibly reflective, causing lighting problems throughout filming. Worse, the costume was so rigid that Daniels couldn't sit down between takes, and had to be helped in and out of it constantly. The protocol droid's elegant appearance came at the cost of Daniels' comfort. Number 17. The film's budget was so tight that some of the most memorable moments happened by accident. When Luke stares at the twin suns of Tatooine, that wasn't originally planned as a major emotional beat. Mark Hamill was simply waiting between setups when the cinematographer noticed how the light looked and quickly grabbed the shot. That moment of longing that perfectly captures Luke, his desiring to leave his desert home, was pure spontaneous filmmaking magic. Number 18. The Cantina band's music became iconic, but the instruments were completely fake. The musicians were miming to a pre-recorded track, and the instruments were made from random props and decorative elements. The horn-like instruments were plumbing fixtures. The most famous alien jazz band in cinema was playing air instruments to earth music, recorded in a studio. Number 19. The film's climactic Death Star battle was achieved through a technique that nearly drove the effects team insane. Each X-Wing and TIE fighter was a small model, filmed separately against a blue screen, then composited together in post-production. But the technology was so primitive that each composite shot took days to complete, and any mistake meant starting over completely. The space battle that thrilled audiences was created one painstaking frame at a time by artists who were inventing the techniques as they went. Number 20. The movie's success caught everyone so off guard, but there was no plan for sequels. When A New Hope became a massive hit, George Lucas realized he had accidentally created the middle chapter of a larger story. He retroactively added Episode 4 to the opening crawl for the 1981 re-release, confusing audiences who wondered what happened to Episodes 1, 2, and 3. The most famous film trilogy in history started as a single movie that got so successful it had to invent its own past and future. A New Hope gave us more than lightsabers and the Force. It showed us what happens when creative vision meets impossible odds and somehow wins. From Robert Englund's failed audition that led to Mark Hamill's casting, to studio executives who gave away billions in merchandising rights, to a crew that invented special effects while working with a shoestring budget. Every weird fact reveals people who believed in something the rest of Hollywood thought was crazy. The real force wasn't in the mystical energy field, it was in the determination, creativity, and pure luck that turned George Lucas's space fairy tale into the most beloved saga in cinema history. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin when nobody expects them to succeed. But A New Hope's behind-the-scenes magic and weird facts is just the beginning of the Star Wars saga's incredible secrets. If you want to find out the other movies, make sure to like and subscribe. Take care. We'll see you next time.